And we are live. Welcome. My name is Steve Jaguar.
And I'm Mike Foster.
And welcome to the first-ish episode of...
Yes, the first-ish episode, because in the WTF category, we screwed up our videos. So make sure that if you're on Twitch, subscribe, follow us. We promise we won't lose the video this time. And if you're on YouTube, hit that bell. We'll get notifications. We're going to post it up there. So we'll get a catalog of videos if you miss things.
That's right. Yes,
it's
because
we're
more.
Yeah.
How many tech people does it need to remember to download a video in 14 days? Apparently more than 2.
Yeah, the holidays were... It was a long 14 days, in fairness.
Yeah, it was a long 14 days. This, however, we will be doing weekly, so we should have reminders every Friday, 6 p.m. for me. It's 1 p.m. for you?
Eastern. Yeah.
I'm in England. You're in Toronto?
10 a.m. if you're on the West Coast.
There we go. Perfect. Okay, in this now version 1, we'll be talking about all things Kubernetes, all things security, things DevOps, but anything really that affects the ecosystem within which we live. We'll be talking about technology, we'll be talking about news, we're talking about tooling, and even occasionally doing the odd demo. Shall we get into it?
Let's do it.
All right. What's our first... Are we going to go straight into ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, a little self-promotion to start off. It's big news, I think. Big general news.
Is it part of the WTF category? No, it's pre-WTF.
Yes, general news. But if in case anybody out there hasn't heard, StackRox, Kubernetes native security company, just got acquired by Red Hat. That's our big news for the new year. And Steve and I are both a part of StackRox, and it's been a very great start, we'll say.
It was, kind of unexpected. I think we only found out this week, and we were sworn to secrecy for an entire 24 hours. That's how often we knew.
Yeah.
And then kaboom, everything just kind of went nuts. And what blew me away, though, was because the announcement from my perspective was at 9:15 p.m. last night. The official one that I had to wait for, which is like, what am I doing at that point? I'm not really. Sometimes I'm got my tech spider sense on, and sometimes I don't. I swear, 9:16. My LinkedIn, my WhatsApp was going. I'm like, what do you people have lives? Sorry, I mean not you people watching right now or in the future.
Yeah, no, it was awesome to see. Again, like you, I was just shocked, and we got into the new year, and it's like, hey, by the way, we're getting acquired, and I think it's a great fit for StackRox personally. So, we're looking forward to seeing how that progresses in the coming years, and especially now that I think you see some of the big platforms starting to take security personally, and especially like integrated security with Kubernetes, right? I think that's kind of a big theme that we saw last year, and I think you saw some. What was the other smaller security company that got bought last year too?
PortShift.
Yeah, PortShift.
That was the Cisco purchase. We called that in the show that no longer exists.
Yes.
We said that
was one of our themes. It was interesting. So again, maybe that will go in the things to follow. We'll give you updates kind of as to how that happens. But look forward to keeping a part of the open source community and everything that Red Hat does.
All right, very cool. Are we allowed to make any predictions? Probably not, right? Not if we value our jobs.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think that's on the table.
Well, I think I'll tell you what I like. I like the Red Hat is an open source company, and the more we can do in that space is pretty awesome. So that's a sweet spot for me.
Yeah, and they're really a Kubernetes driver too, right? I mean, you look at total contributions to the Kubernetes project, like they really believe in being a part of that community. So, very proud of that, and being a part of that, getting brought into that community at least.
That part is gonna rock.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Are we tempted to stop there and move on to our next awesome subject, which is part of our WTF category? Which is
I don't want people to listen to us talk about ourselves for too long. So let's get into
that's pretty darn boring. All right, cool. So the next new category, let me just kick it off here, is nice. It's what the category? And that's,
we could talk for a long time.
we could go a long time on this one because we had the advantage of the Christmas break. So we're going to do this weekly, and without question, every week something stupid happens. And give it 3 weeks, many stupid things happen. I don't know if it's like, if I even call it stupid, but just things that just make you go, what? And I think do we want to, there's so many things. We have a list in front of us, and like, how many things can we start with? Do we want to
really
start
had to
with
shrink down the amount before, but
which one do you want to start with?
I
Do you
mean,
have a favorite?
the SolarWinds breach to me is one of the most interesting to me. So I
Well,
kind of want
yeah.
to start with that.
Do you want to? Because I was actually a guest on a podcast in December that's going to be released next week, and the host of that podcast said to me, "Should we talk about SolarWinds?" And I was like, we both agreed, nah, it'll be dead. It'll be out of the news by this time this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. No, it was now the latest news was there was a software supply chain or code like availability from Microsoft, and then the number of it's just gone from bad to terrible to incomprehensible, the total breadth of it.
Yeah, it's something that I'm going to be following for the next couple of months, and kudos to the people who continue to report on it, because a lot of the times these things aren't really taken seriously. But yeah, they I guess from the initial reports, they exposed like using SolarWinds monitoring software to gain privileged access to privileged accounts, and then we're able to access the whole supply chain, right? Goes to show you that even a security company, when they use other tools and they don't secure their supply chain, they're still vulnerable all the way down. So just as a general theme, as we get into like GitOps and that whole automated supply chain, we really have to make sure that those things are secure too, right? And your tooling is configured around that. So I just think it's really interesting. And I mean, Microsoft, they reported that basically they use that elevated privilege to get access to their code. They could read the repository, couldn't access anything, so nothing was vulnerable on their end. At least that's what's reported. But again, interesting to continue to follow that story.
Yeah, it's amazing. I used to work in one of my many security vendor pasts. I used to work for a company that did static code analysis on repositories, and we used to be very strict about the fact that you really, like, whether it's read-only or not, you don't want people to have access to your code, because once they have access to your code, they can do whatever they want with it. They can determine vulnerable points of access. So it's amazing, actually.
Yeah, it's like, they only had read-only access, but now they understand the ins and outs of what's going on to a certain extent.
It is. It's kind of what makes open source code, in a way, crowdsourced security, because when you keep it open, people find these things for you because they can see it.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah.
There we go. Another shout out for open source. Second on the list, if I can choose, is and let me hit it again because I love it. Well, I'm going to call it. Started as the Slack outage. That's how I became aware of it. I then became aware that my shopping didn't work either, because I had to order shopping for a collection because we're in lockdown the next day. What else didn't work? I was using a package called Notion, which I really like, by the way. It didn't work anymore, and it was AWS, was it not?
That's what the rumor mill is. I haven't seen any formal reporting on the Slack AWS issue, but Slack went out at 10 a.m. Eastern time. AWS outage was at 10 a.m. Eastern time. A bunch of other places were showing issues. So I'm curious. I am. Unless somebody comes and says Slack doesn't even use AWS, which then we take that back and we're sorry. But
our bad.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Either way, an AWS outage that honestly was undercovered just because of the Slack outage and all the memes that popped up about Slack in the 2021 year on the internet. So it was,
yes,
at least that's all I could find.
It was interesting that that my wife, who is non-technical, now knows downdetector.com. And is like, okay, so anytime anything I'm doing doesn't work, is that where I go? Yeah, that's where you go. And the little graph there, I don't know, you can kind of see when different technologies align. I'm no detective. Michael. But
have you tried restarting your computer?
yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's a fun one. Now I look forward to not that so all the clouds, they tend to release something afterwards that gives you the play-by-play of what, because they learn from it and we learn from it and everybody's better off in the end. But it's amazing when, because Google went down last year, AWS went down once. Was it only twice? Only once? How dependent we are on these services. Like how many things break?
Yeah, and I think you realize like how integrated everybody's lives are into these things too, right? Like we were talking about SolarWinds and that whole supply chain management. You know, IT is sort of seems like this victimless crime, right? It's like, oh, somebody can't get on Slack that much, or oh, somebody can't do this. But you know, when you're compromising, you know, thousands of people's data that may be used against them later on in credit card fraud, or maybe used against them in other things, right? Like they don't, the effect of these things don't necessarily play out right away until like it gets into later years, and all of a sudden, you know, you're really hampering people's lives. So it's, you know, seeing outages and downtime, people are like, oh, you know, SLAs and it's just downtime and blah, blah, blah. But no, these things have like real life impact, right? So I think that's why those outages are so severe, because yeah, we're so integrated into these things, and
it's crazy. I don't know what the SLAs are for major corporations, but if I just consider the supermarket online buying was down, how much money got lost just like per second on that? So it's interesting. Anyway, I don't know. I have much more to comment other than, wow, we really, I guess we're all learning, right? These are all new technologies, and we need to get better a little bit, maybe. All right, what's next? You can choose.
Oh, do you have something else on your? Because I'm going into the things to follow that, you know, was kind of tied into WTF.
Oh yeah, that's true. Because the SolarWinds brings us into shit to follow, but also the big spender category, which we don't have a sting for. We have to make that because that's happening so often. Because we're in the big spender category, sorta. But even crazier is, I think, the next thing, which are I know this isn't all that technical, but it's mind blowing, and that is Lacework's announcement. Shall we go down that road?
Yeah, let's do it. 525 million for automating cloud security and compliance. In funding, too.
In funding. Series D.
Yeah.
Still.
Wow.
Yeah. In a funding round that has already been called by people in the industry irresponsible. I've heard people just say insane. I've heard people say, just shake their heads and go, how? Like that is a punt like you wouldn't believe. Because now you actually have to do something with that.
Yeah.
That is like an attempt at global domination kind of funding.
Yeah, that's why we put it in the shit to follow, because I remember seeing that, like, what is going on? I understand, like, obviously IT and security is hot right now, and I think a lot of the world is trying to figure out where to put money because nothing's really opening up, and it's like IT. But yeah, it's just insane to me. I have no words. I'll be waiting with bated breath.
It is an insane in the insane category for absolutely certainly. I guess that's why we put it in the shit to follow, because we don't know. We will now have our magnifying glasses on Lacework to see what happens. What does this actually mean for anything?
Yeah, and if anybody actually has any insight into that at all, into, you know, strategy or what the theory is, I would actually love to hear it, because I haven't really heard too much commentary online about it. So it's we'd love to bring it up again. Hopefully not under the WTF, but under the, like maybe this is just normal general news now. Like, you know, bring our expectations down a little bit. But
yeah. Hey, by the way, Michael, not to put the pressure on, but we actually have 9 people watching us.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. We were just, unlike the last one, which we didn't advertise at all, and we had 0, and that felt like a real safe space. Now it's a high risk career ending space.
Yeah. Hey, we got DevSec 0802. How's it going? Thanks for joining.
Somebody born on February 8th, we can only assume. Unless you're in America, then it's August 2nd.
I was gonna say the ID switch going from Canada to the USA was interesting when I was in school, but story for a different time.
Sorry for a different time.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's shift it up. And do we want to move? Have you heard anything recently that you want to drop in by surprise, or would you like to move into our tool section?
I mean, if we're going to talk about ourselves again, I think just the acquisition obviously is something that we're going to follow, especially with KubeLinter, with StackRox, and Red Hat's whole open source policy.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how we get integrated. So
that's true.
That's something that I'm looking forward to talking about. You know, whole Kubernetes security lifecycle, I think, is a really interesting topic.
That is absolutely true. Yeah, we didn't put us in the shit to follow section because we didn't know this was going to be something we'd talk about at all.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
As for you put this in here, and I thought it was really interesting. Is it like Puzz.lee? That URL? Yeah.
Puzz.lee. I heard. So let me explain where I heard of Puzz.lee. I heard of Puzz.lee through a fellow community evangeli person, Adriana Goins. He does a daily. I don't know how he does it, but he does a daily show. For me, it's at 12:30, so I watch it during lunch. But for like you, it would be at 7:30 a.m., which might be hard work. Well, you know, I don't know what time you get up. Maybe you're an early bird, but he does a show, and he goes through a lot of things that are DevOps, not so much security related, because he's very Kubernetes and DevOps, and it's all really great. You should watch it if you can find it. It's called Coffee and Cloud Native. But he, in one of his shows, he puzzled over this, and it was a pay per pod service. And it was, in fact, is it worth even? Can we do a thing? We've never done this. Can we do a screen share?
Yeah.
Does it work? I can like just show real quick what I mean.
Sure.
That would be impromptu and probably ill-advised.
Yeah, go for it. You figure that out. I'll talk about it. But yeah, it's PaperPod Cloud, and from what I gathered from it, you know, in terms of the use case, you can see things like Jupyter notebooks, GitLab runners, and things like that, where you're just running some sort of, you know, basically all-encompassed pod in its own namespace with its own RBAC and an OAuth server in front to make sure that you're grouped accordingly. But yeah, you're basically paying per hour per month. It looks like it's only in the EU because all of the pricing is in euro. Or is that pounds? Maybe that's just yeah, it could be just because you know, Adrian obviously reported it, and you were taking a look.
Euro.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's usage and billing per second basis. Kind of like that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the use case?
Yeah,
is that what you're wondering as well?
Well, like I kind of see them, like you go down and it's like, you know, TensorFlow, Keras, PyTorch, and things like that, and I could see it for, you know, maybe somebody who is getting into machine learning and they want to experiment with these different environments, and it's like, hey, here's a pod, here's all the environments set up, you know, bring some code that you've copied and get running with something, right? And you don't have to worry about setting up your workstation at home and doing all this stuff. And coming from a little bit of a research background, I think research would benefit a lot from containers. It's just Kubernetes really isn't set up for a multi-tenant environment, especially for research, right? That takes an admin. So yeah, like that's the one use case I see for it, is if you could get researchers to, it's like, you know, here you want to go run something, here's a pod, you can run it here, sectioned off, you know, bring your own environment, whether it's like R or Python or things like that. I could see that. The problem that I see is like, this doesn't scale, right? Like when you get into big raster processing with R and things like that, you know, you're going to want to be able to scale across servers. So I don't know, maybe we'll put it in stuff to follow, but I found it interesting. I would love if somebody has actually used this to give me some info.
Fair. I think that makes total sense. So I put the link to Puzz.lee in the chat because my screen share told me that, because here's another dumb move. I got a new laptop, and so I swapped it out yesterday, I think it was. my new one and my old one, and I just went to share screen and it told me I'm not allowed to.
Ooh.
Yes. So you can either share or, we can just call it for now. But
I think I can. There we go.
there we go. Very cool. Hey, that looks good.
Yeah,
I can pretend I'm looking at it.
Yeah, Kubernetes out of the box. It's use a dashboard. And then it has a couple examples. So Jupyter Notebook, GitLab, and then you can see obviously they're bringing other services in. And then, slap a GPU on it, then
there you go. And your stock goes way up.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is just me making a bunch of inferences about what they're showing, pick Docker images that are already there.
Yeah, I actually really like that.
Yeah.
Some of their choices are a little bit research-based, you might say.
Yeah.
Well, so that's salivating over TensorFlow, that's all.
All right.
Do we want to, so we can jump from there to Pixielabs?
Yeah.
Because that's part of all categories.
It is. I'll let you take over that one on Pixielabs.
All right, I'll take over a little bit. So back, I'd say summer, I got a wind of Pixielabs, and you'll have to just share if you want to share pixielabs.ai. And I can put it into the chat.
Yeah, I got it.
So I heard about Pixielabs and I thought, okay, observability for Kubernetes. There's already tools out there that do that, like in a variety of different ways. Like I use Lens. Lens was bought by Mirantis, and Octant. There's even an app you can get for your phone that you can point at a Kubernetes cluster with a kubeconfig, and you could observe via your phone. I use it for my Pi cluster behind me.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool. But so another one of these, I thought, nah. And then I looked at it and went, okay, I got to admit, it looks pretty cool, right? It's got graphs with lines and zings and colors. It's got a Tron kind of old-fashioned video game. It's in dark mode, so I'm already kind of hungry for it. And then I saw there was a launch type thing in October, and in the launch, and you could probably see it under either blog or events or company in there, but there was an event, and one of the keynote speakers was Kelsey Hightower. And then I thought, right, okay, so this isn't just an ordinary observability tool for Kubernetes. This is a Kelsey Hightower and somewhat endorsed Kubernetes observability tool. And then I saw they got something like, I think you can go TechCrunch or you can go anywhere. You can see they got about $9.5 million in initial Series A investment in October, shortly after that. And I mean, Michael, you and I could start well, I think we joked about this last time, just ebpf.buzzword.blockchain.whatever, GitOps, and then if we got Kelsey Hightower at our kickoff, ding dong, we'd have $10 million. But what blew me away is they got bought in December.
Yeah, New Relic snatched them up.
That's a good move, but that is like the fastest inception to purchase thing ever. And I think what we might do, because I'm just setting it up now, and I'll get my screen share work, but I can give you next episode, next week, we can do I can show you what it looks like installed and running on my demo cluster. And I would say it was my experience so far is that it was like the most brain dead easy install ever. It was just, you log into your whatever at Pixielabs, it gives you essentially a curl that runs a script, which is super dangerous, but I did it. And it just uses kubeconfig, detects everything, sets up all the certs between the SaaS solution. I think that's the differentiator, actually. The fact that it's a SaaS observability on a cloud cluster, and the install was, my grandmother could have done it. And then when you log back into the same portal that gave you the install command, it's changed and you have the dashboard.
Yeah.
So I really like that.
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to the demo next week if anybody wants to see Pixielabs.
Yep.
There's like two themes there that I kind of want to pull out. Is like one, the ease of install in Kubernetes, because I've always found that some companies trying to get into Kubernetes sort of get this wrong. Like I hold Nginx up as kind of the golden standard, because when I started, it was like Nginx ingress comes installed, just works out of the box, and you can kind of leave it alone and go to your app and start working on that first, and then you can come back when you need to like swap it out or do something else, but for the time being it works, right? And then people just associate Nginx with Kubernetes, right? And that ease of install in Kubernetes, I think, is very underrated, and I'll like to think that security tools need to follow that model, right? We need to simplify some security, get it into Kubernetes in a way that makes sense for people, instead of sometimes we overcomplicate stuff. But and then
Security.
yeah, it's wild. The other thing that I found interesting is just the general theme of companies trying to build whole lifecycle solutions now, right? It's like observability, metrics, logging, all in one, right? You see this for around Kubernetes. Like you're starting to see Kubernetes sort of mature in terms of companies building out whole portfolios to manage everything, right?
Yeah.
So
excellent. All right. So tune in next week. That's the teaser. That's we see what we're doing there. We want people to come back next week. So we tease you with an exciting tool. And the reason I'm not showing it to you this week, even though it's installed, is because I did the install to see if the install would be feasible as a demo. And it was so good. It totally is. So you can see the blah, 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 bang. It's like, it was probably a minute. So we can do that whole, I can delete it all and we can do it as a whole deal, which I think would be a lot of fun. Last thing we've got on our tool list, which is not as exciting. Maybe we shouldn't have done this last.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting just because it leads into a little bit of supply chain issues that people have, that's been popping up last year. But just a little, GitHub project that we've come across, that Steve came across, and it's K8's image swapper. Basically mirrors Docker images into your local repository, right? So
it was a problem I needed to solve. So it was one of these things where I was talking to a company and they were, because vendor, well, this is our world, right? We are a vendor that provides you a product as images. But you don't want to have to keep going to and using credentials to go to our source. So first thing you're going to want to do is get that into a space and find a way to synchronize that. So this crossed my path. I provided it, and it was kind of an instant solution. So I thought, nice, let's talk about it. Because there are some registries that just allow you to do that, and then some that make it kind of harder for you. So there's a solution for everything out there.
Yeah, somebody's come across it, and hopefully they open source it. But yeah, like if you talked about K8's images, especially with security, like I know StackRox was considering, how do we manage it when we give it to a customer and they want to deploy it in an air-gapped environment? And it's like, you go and you say, hey, you have so many nodes, here's the image, you can go and deploy it, and we get no information from you too, right? And you're starting to see all these security solutions that when they have access to your environments, it's just an extra method of attack. So it's like, kind of understand if you want to bring your images internally. The only other thing obviously you have to add is some sort of life cycle to maintain those images, right? It is extra maintenance on top of that.
Yep.
But
it's interesting. We kind of without really knowing, we have an undercurrent of supply chain management throughout the show. We didn't even really try for that, but we kind of have it.
Sorry, I'm hitting a theme. I've been reading too much over the break.
Yeah, it's good though, actually, because that's one of the things that is kind of, there are dedicated tools out there specifically in the open source community for supply chain management. They're largely unutilized. Had a conversation, oh my God, almost a year ago now. Wow, that doesn't feel like that long ago because of the lockdown. Time has been warped in my mind, with Michael Hausenblas, who's the advocate for AWS, and he was based on a let's say a report he designed, was blown away by how software supply chain was so low on people's priority list. Just generally, there was a lot of security tick boxes that are more like water cooler driven or more conversationally, not so statistically driven. But supply chain, I think that's going to be, with GitHub's on the rise, that's going to be something that is going to be getting people's attention. Plus, particularly when you have SolarWinds breaches.
Yeah, just from personal experience, you see companies adopt more automation and things like GitLab and GitHub and stuff like that without really understanding some of the implications of adopting those solutions, right?
Mhm.
Like you have user accounts, you have access to repositories, and then people leave the company, those things can all be exploited. And the more pieces you have in your supply chain that are unconfigured that you're not monitoring, the more you're basically vulnerable to attack. So
Got
it's a people security topic, I guess, right? Everything is security in a way.
everything. There we go. There, and that is our wonderful final word. We're at 30 minutes for our first show, our first show.
Yeah, 1.1. I don't know.
1.1. Yeah, there we go.
Add our screw up under the WTF category, and we hope not to let you down again.
Yeah, there we go. Amazing. Shall we wrap up?
Let's do it.
All right. Thanks everybody for watching. We had 8 flipping around people throughout the whole show. That rocks. Tell your friends. Forward this show after the fact. Go check it out because it'll be going to YouTube. Am I correct, Michael?
It'll be going to YouTube as well, and we're going to be starting up security meetups. So we're going to have basically 2 speakers every month that are coming on the second Thursday of every month. And we're going to be talking about anything security. So if you have some topics that you want to see at previous meetups, it'll be streamed to Twitch and YouTube as well. You can check those out there.
And that's all coming through this channel, correct?
Yeah.
Just making
correct.
Sure.
Yep.
This is the
community. We'll have 2 little things of content. Us just rambling on Fridays, and then we'll have the real IT leaders talking on their second Thursday of every month at meetups until hopefully we get back to seeing people.
That rocks. And they can get a hold of us at what email address if they want to say make a suggestion for a show or maybe be a guest on a meetup?
Yeah. Well, you can always ping me, michael.foster@stackrox.com. Also community@stackrox.com. Those are 2 really good ways. There you go. I'm pretty available as well on Twitter and LinkedIn. So
amazing.
Again,
I think both of our Twitters
you.
were up there. So you can see below our names. PM us. We pay attention to it. Nice.
Mhm.
All right. Incredible. Michael, thank you for co-hosting once again. And we will be back next week at 6 p.m., 1 p.m. and 10 a.m.
Mhm.
All time zones. And thanks, DevSec0802, for watching the whole show. We just got a thanks team.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I'm going to sign off with the sign in.